Okay, I'm starting now. Yay! Hopefully we don't lose connection with the storm. If we lose power, that'll be it. We'll be off. We are in a stormy weather right now with lots of wind and rain and yep. So just hoping that we stay connected to the internet. It's quite blustery out there. Hi, Aaron. Welcome. Ian says, here we are, blessed be and welcome, with lots of exclamation points. There's some pretty good gusts happening. Carla says, hi, Siofra and Ian, how was your week? Storm has passed us, but must have settled with you guys. Yep, we definitely have it. It came in last night, woke me up early hours of the morning. I could hear the wind getting going. Ian says overemphasis.
Sorry. Can't play with words, what good are they?
That's true. You need to be able to play with them. That's right. But yeah, it's blowing sort of sideways right now. Aaron says, we have rain and snow is melting fast. All right. That's probably good to have the snow melting. That says, hi all, blessed be, beautiful souls.
I've got to go sacrifice Nanny.
Okay, go sacrifice an antihistamine. Maybe you should bring them in. I might need one too.
Okay.
You never know.
Well, I might do the way I'm doing today.
Yeah. One of our neighbors yesterday was burning stuff over there, and then we have our next door neighbor who is using wood for burning, or for heat. So it's a constant irritant. Carla says, there's that pretty lapis lazuli shawl I love you in. Thank you. I remember it being purple, but it still looks blue on my end. Well, this actually is blue. This one is the blue and silver gray one. I have a purple and another one. I have a purple one too. Now, Teresa says, hi, it's raining here too. Awesome. We probably need the rain. Better than the snow. Robert says, yay, pretty lapis. Well, no, this is actually an amethyst around my neck, not a lapis, but it's also very pretty. And Robert says, hello, Beth. Carla says, then it's showing its true color. Yes, Ian was adjusting the color before I got here. He came out and decided he wanted to make it better. Robert says, Beth. So yes, yep, it's weather. What can we say? Had to wear shoes to get through the breezeway, otherwise my socks would be wet. So, yeah. Ian warned me. I'm like, okay, that's what we're doing. It's definitely wet. I think we're supposed to get a couple of inches. So that'll be interesting. I don't think we're yet on a flood watch, but that could come. But mainly all of the flooding happens downtown, so we're probably safe from that where we live. Robert says, so what are we going to talk about? It depends on what you ask. Beth says, hi, Robert, how are you? And I say, hi, Robert, how are you too? And the histamines have arrived. Robert wants to know what we're going to talk about, and I said, depends on what you ask. I think I'll take one preemptively. Carla says, I like your hair and the pin in it. You look very regal today. Thank you. I've had this one for a while. I have a hard time getting things to stay in my hair because my hair is so fine, things fall out. And who knows, this may fall off too, we'll see. Robert says, okay, well, let's talk about me. Well, I guess you're the expert on that subject. Teresa says, question about the amethyst project. If a piece of amethyst is in silk, will it be charged by the battery and will it have an effect? No, putting it in silk actually preserves whatever charge it might have and keeps it
Insulated.
insulated from other energies. So if you want to charge it up, you need to take it out of the silk. I have a garnet that Ian charged up that gets rid of everything, like, nothing can get anywhere near me. And I keep it in a silk pouch unless I need it. So that way and even if it's not next to me, like if I use it because I'm having a hard night and I'm being bothered or whatever, and I take it out and I forget to put it back in the morning, anywhere I am, it's still having the same effect. So in order for me to stop it, I have to put it back in the pouch. So that's one of the things that silk is really good for. It says, I prefer Obsidian Project. Well, I don't know. You can start your own. That says, I forgot today was Sunday. Well, you're here anyway, so yay. Ickle Pixie says, hello all, happy Sunday. Hi, Ickle. Robert says, Siofra, I have a devil side and it just erupted today. Well, I bet you probably need to take, something for that. Not an antihistamine, but, what do you call those things? Like an Alka-Seltzer or something, or a Pepto-Bismol. Angel food cake. We just watched an episode of Supernatural. Yeah. It had a devil's food and an angel food cake, and Dean was watching Jack really carefully to see which one he'd pick. And he picked the angel food, so he felt relieved, even though it really didn't mean anything. Their humor.
Old classic spoofy comedies.
Yep.
Horror series.
They have quite the humor. Teresa says, that's what I thought. I just found a piece in a silk bag I forgot about. Well, cool. You can charge it up. Barbara says, garnet is strong but hard to master. Blaster. 1, 2, 3, blast off. Jono says, hello. Hi, Jono. Barbara says, angel food cake? I can't. Too much sugar. I'll stick to devil's cookies.
Well, I don't know. If the devil has chocolate, then it would be a good see who won out, angel food or devil's food.
Well, angel.
So many people like chocolate.
Much better.
No, I think the devil's food would win out. He's always got that reputation anyway.
Well, that's true. He's got the fun stuff.
Yep.
And angel food is just too light and fluffy and flavorless.
Just like look at the religious aspects out of it, but maybe an apt comparison.
Well, that's true. I hadn't thought of that.
Sorry.
What can I say? Jam says, hi, Chica and Chico. Hi. Astra says, hey, guys. Hi, Astra. Jam says, hi, healing family. Hi. You're glad to see you're here. Robert says, what's wrong, Siofra? You don't like the devil side, in which we all have? Of course I do. Carla says, with the blood moon eclipse coming up next month, do you guys practice or rest? I know there are some who think eclipse energy can cause chaos, but I'm not sold on that. Neither am I. I think that's just, it just means it's more directly lined up over you, so I think it, could make the waves a little bit stronger, but the full moon is strong no matter where you are and no matter what it's doing. But I like eclipses because, especially the lunar eclipse, because since it doesn't cover it completely, it doesn't turn it black, it just kind of dims it since it's going through our shadow. It really gives you that feel of a three-dimensional ball hanging in space that you don't get when it's just the full moon, because it's so bright it kind of eliminates the round aspect or the three-dimensional aspect of it. It kind of blinds it. Jam says, look pretty today with the flower. Thank you. Astra says, I'm just waking up from a nap. May fall back asleep. Well, if you do, I hope you have good dreams. That says, blackberry cobbler going in the oven now. They're baking. We had oatmeal cookies the other day. Robert says, I'm just a little corny little devil like Jack Nicholson in Witches of Eastwick. Blah. I just tease. But sometimes I want to get noticed. I am bored. I'm sorry, you're bored. Cobbler Beth? How so? Carla says, my thoughts exactly. You have all three energies, earth, moon, and sun. Robert says, devil means adversary, not evil all the time.
That's very true. I don't know if probably everybody on here knows that, but the term devil just meant adversary.
Yeah.
In the Bible, so yeah, they I believe at one point one of the so-called angels was called a devil with the meaning of adversary at one point when somebody wrestled an angel. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't rememberize all that Bible stuff.
And Carla says aligned. Robert says, yep, interesting subject, this devil thing. Asha says, laugh out loud. I remember that movie, Robert. Yeah, that was actually kind of entertaining. Jack Nicholson was definitely entertaining in that.
Yeah, he does.
Yep. I haven't seen him in much of anything in a long time. Don't know what he's up to.
Oh, he's had enough success. He could have retired if he wanted.
Wow, look at that. Look at that water flying. Well, I've been having fun flying around the solar system the last couple of nights. I find it much more relaxing and entertaining than being around the planet at the moment. So, oh, there's another roll over there. In case we need it. Right in front of us. All right. But yeah, these days are good for entertainment.
Sympathy for the Devil. Not my favorite Rolling Stones song.
Yeah. Jam says, I made homemade Caesar salad and salad and grilled steaks today. Yummy. I've been trying out new foods with the bunny. So I got him some butter lettuce, and I've been feeding him little rounds of carrots, which are, I finally got them narrow enough or thin enough so he can grab a hold of them and run off with them. Because they're kind of, I had them too big and he kept dropping it. But yeah, he's getting some variety, so he's very excited. Robert says Saturn is losing a small amount of its rings, they say, lately. Weird. Yeah, they say they actually might disappear rather quickly. I don't know if it's true or not. I guess we'll find out. Trinity says, hey, Siofra and Ian and everyone. Hi, Trinity. Teresa says, I gave offerings to my two main goddesses, then Kali also wanted one. She requested chocolate pudding. How to dispose of it since chocolate is toxic to animals? Garbage or toilet seems disrespectful.
Once she's done with it, maybe you ought to just.
That's true.
Yeah, you know, a lot of the.
A lot of traditions. Yeah, in Indonesia, that we know of this from someone that was there, when they always put offerings out at dinner to the household deities and so forth, and the altars that they have in their houses. And they just put the food out, and they wait a specific amount of time and decide that the deities have taken whatever it is that they want out of it, and then they eat it. So it doesn't go to waste. So you could give Kali the offering of the chocolate pudding, give her some time to, like, suck out the goodness, and then you could eat the pudding. Then you don't have to worry about disposing of it.
I know that there's a lot of temples in India where I've read that the same thing happens. Followers come out and the offerings, just accepts it as prasad. In and takes care of the temples.
Yep.
Things like that.
Carla says he introduced someone on the SNL special, but other than that, I haven't seen much of what he's been up to either. That would be Nicholson. Nichols says, I don't know, paint it black has an immovable place in my heart.
That's a pretty serious song there about the Vietnam War area and that. Black, yeah.
Robert says, Teresa, I tried to work with Kali, but she always wants me to call on Hecate also. Are they the same spirit? Well, they're certainly different pantheons, but they have definite similar energy.
Yeah, they have similar energies, but definitely not the same. I haven't worked with Hecate at all, but Kali a little bit, and she's definitely her own distinct.
But they could be complementary. Jam says, carrot soup for bunny. Yeah, you have to be careful how many carrots you give a bunny because they have a lot of sugar in them. Carla says, I like the Stones too. Sympathy is one of my faves, along with a little TNA. Keith Richards sings. Robert says, carbs and fibers are not the great. Our body is designed to break down and use fat. And Robert says, Stones. I like Romancing the Stones, the devil version, of course. Teresa says, it's too late to eat the pudding. It's been out for days. Oh, I'm sorry. In that case, you're out of luck.
Yep.
So, burying it maybe.
Yeah, that would be my first thought, would be to bury it respectfully and, let the earth take it. And I don't think there's anything disrespectful in that whatsoever.
Robert says, I agree, Teresa. Teresa says, Robert, I don't think they are the same, but both are dark goddesses and compatible, I have found. And Carla says, we've been feeding the rabbits with rolled oats. 2 of them come each night and let us watch them eat.
Cool.
It's our Bridget offering. Ooh, cool. Beth says, I'm listening, loves. I've got to make this cobbler perfect. Nature spirits in the yard get a portion, and I want it perfect. Oh, you got to have it perfect, yeah. Robert says, thanks for clearing that. Ian, what spirit do you work more often with?
I actually don't. In general, I'm following a bunch of different stuff on Barton's works and things, so really I don't. I've worked with a couple of Earth's own spirits a couple of times, a couple of evocations and things, but mostly if I want to do something like that, I'll pick one of the ones out of Barton's book and then work with them because he gives their seals and everything correct there. So yeah, one Earth spirit that helps with bring things to fruition, that helps you with like finances, things like that. Supposed to procure a good living condition for everyone. It helps with that. So just a couple of those like that, not one particular one over and over thing.
Astra says, okay, I'm fully awake. I had a lot of nightmares last night, so I didn't sleep a lot. I think I was experiencing a psychic attack. The afternoon nap helped. Well, good. I'm glad you got a nap in, because it's never fun when you don't sleep. Robert says, how are you feeling, Astra? And Ickle says, maybe dry the cake out and burn it. I think pudding doesn't dry very well. Beth says, Astra, I had nightmares last night too. Yeah, I don't know that. I had an interesting dream a few nights ago that I think related to our particular political situation on the planet, about a whole herd of horses they were trying to get up a.
Before we forget, can I add one little thing?
Okay.
I'll let you continue with that. I just wanted to add one thing to the previous discussion before we quit. Once Polly or whoever has taken the energy out of it, then it's just matter, so you can dispose of it any way you want without worrying about it, honestly. So, except for psychologically how you feel about it, it's immaterial how you deal with disposing of it. My opinion. So, okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Teresa says, I recently read that chthonic goddesses are insulted if you give salt as an offering. Why? Well, for one thing, I don't think the chthonic goddesses are real. They're a made up story from Lovecraft, and they don't have any basis in archaeological or, any kind of myths or stories or anything that are out there that I've found.
Up to what you were saying, though.
That's okay, I'll get back to that.
Okay.
Astra says, I discovered a bunch of scriptures on my new TikTok page. A lunatic Christian was using scriptures as curses on many of my UFO videos. He also liked my videos. Carla says, I've only called on angels and Inanna. I worked with Inanna and Ishtar a lot, and when I was in a group, Santa Cruz. But anyway, back to the dream I had. There was a herd of horses that these people were trying to get. They were down on the beach, on the edge of between the sand and the sea, and as they were being herded up, there was an area that was like sort of almost like quicksand, but not quicksand, but it was kind of thick and icky and hard to move through. It was like they were trying to move through it, but were getting stuck. And so some of the people went in front of the horses and were sort of trying to pull the horses forward, and other people were pushing from behind to get them through this weird spot. And they succeeded in getting them through the weird spot. So I thought it was a somewhat hopeful kind of dream that, there's going to be some icky sludge to get through, but we'll come out the other side and we can help each other by pushing and pulling. I don't know. But anyway, that was my dream. Robert says, Teresa, sometimes I sense that certain goddess leaves us because we were repelled by other spirits. Seems a war exists between spirits and gods. I don't see that at all. I've never seen a war between spirits and gods. Some are just more compatible with one another
Yeah,
and have different functions.
I think that's more a human conception. So,
Robert wants to know what spirit you follow the most then.
well, I don't really. I mean, the spirit you could say I worked with most is called Emrudu. It's out of Barden's book, his own Girdling the Earth spirit. And I've worked with him, tried to contact him twice for two different major purposes. Um, One was getting out of my situation when I was living in Medford. That one worked out really well. And then the second one was roof for our house, our back shed, and I tried to have him help us with that because that's his specialty.
Living situation.
Living situation, but I don't quite get what you're asking me because I don't really follow or work with spirits in particular. I mean, there's a method given in Barden's first book of contacting your guardian angel. Other than that, I mean, I try to get mental contact with the various people I believe were masters, like Barden and Swami Muktananda and Chaitanya and Swami Nityananda, and realized masters of things. But I don't really do much with the spirits at this point. I don't really plan to until I reach the point of being able to do Barden's second book properly, have the proper clairvoyance and things, reunifications and things. At that point is when I'll start more with spirits. When I get far enough along in his first book, he talks about dealing with the elementals, and you start there with the elementals since they're on this earth, and that's how I'll end up going when the time comes when I get those proper clairvoyant abilities to be aware of what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's right. I met a new spirit being the other night. It was kind of interesting. It first manifested as like a child had been burnt. His hair was burnt off, and I was looking at its head, and I'm like, doesn't seem right. Trying to figure out what it was, and then it turned into a fae. So it was apparently a false face it showed me first, which is not uncommon. A lot of times, the fae spirits will do that because either they're trying to freak you out or they're trying not to freak you out, depending on the mood that they're in, or they're just trying to disguise themselves because they're not sure about how they'll be received. But yeah, he was fine. He was just a regular kind of forest spirit. So, Carla says, I'm dreaming too. Teresa says, thanks, Ian, that helps. And Astra says, posted around the same time while I was sleeping having nightmares. So it could be that you were open to the energy coming through. Pickle says, I forgot to translate pudding. Pudding is just dessert here. Ah. Yeah, here pudding is a specific type of dessert. Carla says, she's a good one, very protective. Astra says, I felt very unsettled most of the day. I bet you did, or you would, because after that, I often feel a little unsettled too. Beth says, I'm having moments of time not accounted for lately. I'll clean, go outside, cook a meal, and have no memory. That being said, I was a sleepwalker as a small child. Interesting. So maybe you're sleep cleaning and cooking and working. Some people actually do that. There's that one comedian who has to be he has to be tied into a special bag, a mummy bag, with his hands covered and zipped in, so he can't unzip himself and get out because his sleepwalking is so extreme. He first found out about it when he crashed through a plate glass window at a hotel where he was staying. So yeah. I'm assuming you're not on any medication that could make you sleepwalk, because there's some that does that. Asher says, but I put a keyword filter on my TikTok page so I don't have to see abusive content on my page, but I can't believe people are so negative.
That's disappointing.
Robert says, very protective. How so? Carla says, same. I dreamt of a nurse, I'm guessing. She was dressed in white, shirt, apron, hat, whole 9 yards. She was pointing and looking back at me saying, "You watch what I can do about him." Apparently my lozenge is making me cough. You watch. Then she walked quickly away down the hall. Seemed like a hospital. Interesting. Astra says, my orb video posts are positive and wholesome. Some people's energy is just in the toilet and they want to drag others down. I set up my TikTok to religious keywords in King James English. Robert says, Siofra, why certain spirits are strong enough to move objects here when they die and some do not have any signs? Well, it depends on how intensely they feel about what's going on and how much available energy they have to work with. Some of them are just stronger than others. And sometimes what you're talking about is a poltergeist phenomenon, and that energy generally comes from a living person. We have more and more people now, elderly people, that have become poltergeist loci because of getting extremely grumpy and flying into rages.
Of course, apparently not all of them are connected to humans, though. As
Well, right, that was a different thing.
Yeah, we have a story with a friend of ours where he ended up letting a poltergeist, it's a long story, but he ended up letting a poltergeist into him to find out what it wanted. And it turned out it wasn't really a being, it was just like an insane force that was just babbling and gibbering and couldn't speak English, and then they couldn't get it out of his body, and they ended up having to, they figured the spirit that was in him that they couldn't get rid of and couldn't banish had never experienced pain before, so they burned him with a cigarette, at which point it did banish the
He left in a hurry.
poltergeist out of him. That's a perfect example of what not to ever do.
Right.
But it was brave on his part, I gotta say.
Desperate times.
But so yeah, sometimes forces are just like malevolent. They're just like forces. They're not really like beings or intelligence.
Yeah, it really does depend on a lot of factors.
I guess you might say it was like animalistic, like a mad animal or something in that sense.
I am going to be doing a paranormal workshop next week. I've got one scheduled for Friday at 3 o'clock my time and another one on Saturday morning at 10. So if you wanted to have a focused discussion on that, you could join the Zoom call. And if you were interested, you can send me an email at shifrasmagicalcove@gmail.com. I've been advertising it as an event on Facebook, trying to figure out how to get the word out. But yeah, because I have a lot of experience in the paranormal field, and there are a lot of different varieties of things that are out there. So Astra says, I've had an ugly looking little fae appear once. He was deformed, and I was, hi little fellow, because he was tiny, and felt like I wanted to be kinder to him because he was disfigured. Fluid Mystic says, hi everyone, long time no see. Hi Fluid. Carl says, oh my god, I've read ambient horror stories. Don't you mean music? Ambient. All right. Astra says the other fairies were laughing like they were in on a joke. Maybe they were testing how I reacted. So that's interesting that you mentioned that fae can appear different looking. Carla said, whole 9 yards. I don't like typos. Robert says, ambient horror story. Don't you mean music? Jam says, my angels said when I lived, Iceland was a bad ghost spirit, very scary. I was 3 years old. I remember it. Hated that room. I'm sorry. It's not fun, especially when you're little and don't understand what's going on. Robert says, Siofra and or Ian, in the past, were you part of a religion or church? I was raised as a Methodist. That was my mother's church, and I guess my grandmother's church. So yeah, I got programmed pretty early on.
Yeah, I was raised Christian.
Yours was not one of the standard religions, though. It was like a small offshoot, but very
yeah, it was
sort of cultish.
Yeah, I can almost think, not quite, maybe don't really want to remember it.
Okay.
It was pretty much a fundamentalist, serious fundamentalist group.
Yep, it doesn't matter. But the answer is yes. Asher says, if I see an ugly little being and they're nice to me, I can accept that they are ugly. My brain will find a way to make ugly beings cute. Well, yeah, and it's like a perception thing, an aesthetic, human aesthetic. Carla said, did the poltergeist come from the child's energy or ritual ground energy? It fascinates me. Well, it depends on the situation. That one that Ian was talking about, we only know
Yeah,
secondhand.
and it never seemed to have any human intelligence or anything. It just seemed like it was some random blind force that the universe whipped out or something. I mean, it didn't give any impression of any sort of being or soul or anything like that. It was just a mad thrashing force kind of thing.
And it was strong enough to stack furniture
Yeah,
instantly. They could leave a room and come back, and all the furniture would be piled on top
yeah.
of each other.
According to what he said, they'd hear a big whump as all the furniture sucked together, and then it would all be piled up in a pile in the middle of the room.
So, sometimes these things are difficult to sort of pull apart as far as figure out what the threads are, because
Yeah, well, that's why he tried letting this force in, was because they couldn't figure out what it was or what it wanted. It didn't seem to be a ghost or anything else, and apparently it wasn't. It was just some random, mad force. Who knows?
and the kind of poltergeists that come from children, usually it's a child in puberty in a conflicting home environment with conflicting feelings, and they have like a lot of intense emotions that they can't express. So it's a very repressed energy that had a lot of force behind it that causes objects to just move around them. And you can tell if it is that kind of a poltergeist, the activity will only happen when they are home. And if
Or when they're upset and yeah,
or
things
when
like
they
that.
have
Yeah.
to be in the house. If you remove them from the location and take them somewhere else and the activity continues, then you know that they're not the loci. And it's not coming from them, it's something else that's going on. So that's one of the ways you can test a situation by adding and removing different components. Um, Teresa says, I enjoyed the Zoom session on the paranormal we did last week. Thanks. You're welcome. I did too. Sam says, also, bad spirit ghost in Naples in my room. Sorry, it's not fun. Donna says, crazy story about the dude who invoked a poltergeist. Very interesting. Dude didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah, I agree it was a bad idea, but for what it's worth, he'd been a practicing magician for like probably, I don't know how early this was in his career, but yeah, he'd probably been at it 20 years at least at a minimum, I think.
It was definitely,
Just a bad idea.
it was a bad idea. He left his body and gave the whatever permission to enter his body on the assumption that then the other people in the room could have a
Yes,
conversation.
he was advanced enough to step out of his body on purpose, astrally, and that was
He channeled,
yep.
became possessed.
In about the worst possible way.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that was
Stepping out of your body, yeah.
yeah, that was in retrospect, and it also took a while for him to recover from it because it was kind of damaging.
Apparently, when it burst out of him, it slammed him face first into a wall. So the story goes.
Yep, threw him and the chair
Yeah.
into the wall. So it's like, yes, I'm out of here. Slam. I'm going that way. Ah, Carla says Ambien, the sleeping pill. It'll make people sleepwalk, sleep cook, sleep drive, etc. And they'll have no recollection of it. That's what I was thinking of, was that type of sleeping aid. Esther says, kind of like when I see an ugly little dog, I still like them. Yeah, they're so ugly, they're cute. Yep, this is true.
But nobody likes an ugly big dog so much. Speaking for myself.
Yeah.
If it's little, it's not a threat. Then it's cute.
Okay, so Ickle says, along the lines that there is no battle of good and evil, and darkness is not the evil adversary of light, how do you describe identity, what you want to protect yourself from? Malevolence, imbalance,
Well,
intrusion.
But yeah, intrusion.
Intrusion, external intrusion that's not welcome, something that you haven't agreed to, an energy that isn't compatible with yours or the path that you're on and which way you want to go, other people's thoughts and energy, without it, yeah, that would be one of the things. I've only ever encountered one spirit that I was thought was malevolent, and of all of the spirits that I've encountered in my career, and there've been a lot of them, that was the one that was like, okay, I'm getting out of here. I'm not dealing with this. I don't know exactly what's going on and why this thing is
Yeah,
stuck in a wax figurine.
there definitely seem to be some malevolent ones about. I haven't encountered one myself.
Yeah, but there's malevolent people. And so
Yeah,
there's no, there are people, serial killers and all the other varieties of sociopaths and psychopaths and stuff that we know have had human bodies and have done terrible things to other people. When they die, they don't become nice. It's not like an instantaneous, like, oh wow, I've realized the error of my ways. I'm now going to be a being of light and wonder. So you always have to uh, make sure that you're protecting your personal boundaries when you're dealing with anything, whether it's a real person in the room or a spirit being. And that's one of the other things is that a lot of people don't seem to get, is that just because you have a wonderful, amazing encounter with a spirit being and it tells you to do something, that doesn't mean you have to do it. It's still your free will and your choice. And beings can lie. They can tell you something that's completely and totally untrue. There's no guarantee that what they say is real, accurate, truthful, or anything else at all, just like people can lie as well. And we've had this assumption that because they work on a telepathic connection, it's like, mind to mind kind of thing, that in that kind of a link you can't lie, but that's not true. So just remember, free will. Your own personal judgment is the most important thing.
well, and your magical authority. If you have good magical authority, they're much less likely to lie to you and to try to deceive you.
Yeah.
To keep your natural magical authority up, and Siofra has videos on that.
Yeah, and natural authority is probably the most powerful tool in your toolbox when it comes down to it. Because if you have it, then nothing can shake it. It's and they know it. It's kind of one of these things. It's sort of like stamped on your spirit or something. I don't know how they know it, but they do. Astra Cosmos says, "Hi Schieffer, your videos have been really helpful lately." Good, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for coming. Robert says, "More like imbalance."
Well, it's true. The one thing to remember about all that is it's all relative to our human conception. I mean, good or evil is relative to our judgment, whether it's good for us or evil for us or whatever. I mean, like the example I like to use, mold in your cottage cheese is only evil to the human conception. It's great for the mold who loves eating the cottage cheese, I'm sure,
Doing
And
its
and you
job.
don't want to eat it and get sick, so it's bad for us, but the mold isn't evil, it's just doing its job. So it's that kind of thing. There are some beings that have negative jobs like that. And so it's all our human conceptions. There really is no good or evil. There are forces that do building up and forces that do tearing down, and they work in harmony with each other. And one example with the light is, how would you see there wouldn't be any light you could conceive of if everything was the same brightness, there was no darkness at all?
No contrast.
There'd be no contrast, you couldn't see anything. So that kind of thing is used too. I mean, it's only good in a relative sense. It's good for you. It's not necessarily an absolute.
Right.
Sorry.
No,
Okay.
it's true. So Trinity says, "Hey Schieffer, I was wondering if you started into witchcraft solo or with a group coven. Would love to see a video if there's one out there. Thanks." I've got a couple of videos on the subject, and I actually was born a witch and knew I was a witch. So, I mean, I came with a lot of knowledge, information, and abilities that I did not know what they were. I just had them, and I started doing ritual seriously when I found Starhawk's book, The Spiral Dance, and that was solo. But then I also was teaching other people, and I had several people who joined with me. So it was sort of a combination of solo and group work. I've been in a number of covens, led a coven or two, and I have a video called Solitary or Coven to look at some of the benefits and the pitfalls of either path or both ways. And it just really depends on the people that you end up with. working with other people is problematic in the sense that you're working with a lot of different levels of clarity, and that is one of the things. If everyone isn't working on their own stuff in a group, if they're not working, doing their own shadow work, working with themselves, working to become a clear individual and not be projecting their own stuff on everybody around them, and knowing who they are and being solid, then when you're working with a group, all these weird things pop up. I've seen groups fall apart pretty quickly because a relationship that was before the group started then dissolved in the group because of that kind of thing. Yeah, and that can break a group apart. So it really, again, personal boundaries and self-awareness and so forth are key. And sometimes it is worth it if you can get the right group of people to do a magical working, because the more energy you have available, the stronger the working that you're doing, the more effective it'll be. But then if you have to deal with all the aftermath, then it becomes an issue. So yeah, the one on Solitary or Coven has got some pretty interesting experiences I've had in both. So that would be one that you'd probably enjoy watching. Jen says, hello everyone, glad to be here with you all. I wanted to share there's the National No Buy protest on February 28th. Yes, I've heard about it. It's all over Facebook. Carla says, like a chaos energy. Asha says, holy crap, that's crazy. Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
Oh my God, says Jam, I'd be running fast.
Yeah, I don't know what I do. I never experienced anything that. I might have a tendency to run too. If I ever face something like that, I'll let you know.
Whoops, I did that again. I have to put my finger on the right spot, otherwise I'm in trouble. Ah. Carla says, similar to telekinesis with kids. I'm sitting here nodding in agreement with the poltergeist conversation. Oscar says, that's wild. What a rodeo. Jam says, my touched my feet under sheets and had to move to another bed. Had two beds in Iceland. Also had to go to the bathroom and put hair removal cream. Not good. Had no eyebrows. Oh, I'm sorry. But did you see the Fae in Iceland? I understand they have a lot of fairies there. Violet says, hi, you two. Hi, Violet. Jam says, now they believe, but long ago they said I was dreaming. Ah, I see. It's always that good excuse. It's just a bad dream. Go to bed. Go to sleep. Everything will be fine in the morning. I had a nightmare. Asha says, exactly. I don't like intrusive energies. That's what caused my nightmares. And if you're sensitive, there's more conflicts because spirits are campaigning for their will and agendas. If you can't play nice or you're trying to usurp my will, then you're not welcome. That's how I feel about anything out there. Yeah, same here. And you know, you're the only one who can maintain that boundary, and the stronger your boundary gets, the less often it'll leak in anyway, because it'll get stopped before it even gets to the door. It's like, yeah. Teresa says, Ian, what about the Goetic demons? You have warned us away from them. Not evil?
That is correct. They're not actually evil in that sense, and they're not actually demons, by my opinion. Let me explain just a little bit. So, I warn people away from them because they're dangerous. Because um, they don't necessarily have the limitations on them. I mean, Barton's beings will usually work for your good and look out for your karma. A lot of the Goetic beings will just do what you ask if there's an advantage in it for them or if you give them enough energy. So they're more open for people damaging their own karma and screwing themselves up. So yes, they can injure themselves. Not only that, but let's talk about the word evil again. So I'm going to put out there a circumstance. Some people are judged by the judges of Saturn that they have to go through insanity of some sort. Okay, for example, because of their past lives, whatever reasons, it comes their due, their time. Maybe they tortured somebody in the past, I don't know. But these are the beings that have to go out there and do things like punish people and things like that. And according to Barden, the atmosphere they live in has the depressing quality of a nightmare for most people. So some of these beings are the beings that go out there and literally do horrible things to people because it's their karma, it's their time. But those beings still work under the full magical rules and laws of the universe, and um, they aren't just they aren't like the devil's picture to go out and tempt people and make them do evil and tempt people to evil and things like that. Sometimes they have extremely unpleasant tasks, and people die in all kinds of ways, and there are beings that have to deal with the people that are dying and things like that. Um, Barden mentions at one point and actually gives the seal for the death being for the Earth Zone that takes care of that kind of stuff, but he describes that recommends most people never ever try to contact that being because that being will likely become well, basically the death of them. Especially if they succeed at doing an evocation of the being, chances are they'll just die on the spot in most cases. So
That's how you know you're successful.
well, yeah, so it's that thing. It's not that they're evil and that they're malicious, but they have to do negative and sometimes tasks that people would find evil. But judged in a hermetic sense, in a cosmological, rules of the universe sense, it's not evil. It's just people getting their due with karma and things like that. So, but since they are dangerous and they don't have those limitations, they're also the best ones for people to absolutely destroy themselves by using or trying to misuse their seals and things. So, yes, not evil, but you know, it's like giving a nuclear bomb to Trump. Forgive me for saying that, but you shouldn't put big guns in the hands of people who are not responsible for them. So, if somebody follows Barden's methods and they get to the point of doing evocation using Barden's methods, and they've got the moral qualities that they've advanced that far, then they can work with the Goetic demons without any risks. Work with them like any other being. But most people are not even close to that state. So that's my thing about that. I consider them way too dangerous for a beginner to start with. At least with a lot of Bardens, being might just take pity on the person and say, "Okay, well, we'll save you from this disaster you almost promulgated upon yourself." Those kind of things.
The other thing about this is that a lot of people who are interested in working with those demons are interested, or the spirits are interested in it because they think it's going to give them power over other people. So they're in it for the wrong reason to start with. There's another reason why we don't recommend it, because
there's no reason to. There's no advantage to working if you're not trying to hurt people. Then there's no advantage to working with them over any of Barden's spirits or any of the typical spirits. Like, you can use the cameo of the spirit of Mars or Hagiel's sigil from the standard workings, the standard magical stuff. And Barden implies that those sigils are correct. Hagiel's sigil is right, and he gives it at one point in his book. So you can also use the standard planetary spirits and intelligences. There's no need to go to the Goetic unless you want to do nasty stuff to people, and that seems to be the major reason.
And then so that's another good reason to stay away from it. So many good reasons. Pickle says, thank you. I try and avoid the good classification as a rule. I don't feel qualified to judge. Beneficial maybe at a stretch.
Well, you can judge for yourself. That's absolutely fine.
Robert says, good or evil are not objective. No, they're subjective. Jam says, you've been a witch your past life too. Are you going to be a witch in the future too? Probably. I mean, it's just my essence, my essential self. I've worked in goddess temples and places like that in the past, and I've worked as a medicine woman in a Native American culture. I mean, it's just part of my essence, the type of spirit that I am. Not that all of my lives have been that. I've had lots of them that were no fun, and I remembered those too. So, but according to a lot of the lore, is like, witches are reborn over and over and over again because the world needs us. And we're part of the intelligence of the earth in human form to try and help things along as much as we can. Not that we always succeed or even can succeed, who knows, but still. But yeah, I imagine I will be. But I mean, I knew I was a witch when I was like 4 years old. I just knew it. I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. There were no books, there was no internet, there were no people, there were no groups. It was like not for me when I was little. And so it took a while to find out that there was a whole group of people like me. And yeah, Starhawk at the moment, if you're interested in magical workings to help with our current political situations, look up Starhawk's pages, and she's helping to organize a lot of that kind of stuff. And she's very much a resistor of things. And I've seen her stuff coming across my page, so I recommend her. Robert says boundaries sometimes cannot be fast enough on time. Often it takes a few split seconds and it's too late. That's why you have them all the time. They're not supposed to be,
Yep.
like this. It's like you always have boundaries, and then when something wants in, you go like yes or no. And yes, better to always have boundaries. And
Yep.
and had a conversation with my granddaughter the other day. No is a complete sentence. Remember that. If someone wants you to do something, you don't have to say anything else, you just say no. If they want you to explain why you don't want to do it, they're looking for a way to convince you that you're wrong about your reasons why, and you don't have to have any reasons why. If you don't want to do it, you just don't want to do it, period. So
Yep.
never explain. It's an opening.
Oh, I mean, never explain. See, if it's that kind of thing, yeah.
Well, never explain to someone who
Who's
you
just trying
don't
to talk you,
absolutely
yeah.
trust, and you're not having a conversation about it as a subject. If you
Right,
say,
and that's-
they say, hey, let's go do that, or, we
Yeah.
want you to have this, and you say no, and then they're like, but why?
Yeah, I'm afraid that's one of my weaknesses. I still have to work on people trying to tell me to do things their way, and feeling superior about telling me to do things their way, and that sets me off. I shouldn't get set off. I should be more advanced than that. But sometimes,
But
it's
hey,
still,
we're human.
it's one of my buttons I haven't quite gotten rid of yet. I'm working on it.
Yep,
Still.
it's slow. It's a process. Jam says, just like a spiritual healer, she brought. Yep, that's me. Robert says the best way to have. Whoops, I blinked. I think I went down too far. Here we go. The best way to have strong mental faith in ourselves, that's the best way, is to have. Yes, that's true. Carla says, I prefer solitary. I'd work with you and Ian, though. Well, thank you, Carla. Jam says, good and evil is inside you. You pick which one you want to do. Your choice, I think. Well, yeah. I mean, if you're going to be kind and generous to people, or you're going to be mean and vicious. Sometimes being mean and vicious is a self-preservation instinct, and it can be, I'm not against it if your self-preservation is at stake. I can lie with the best of them if I'm in danger. And so I don't believe that truth is always the best response. I think the situation is the thing that decides what's the best response for you.
Well, that's always the way to be anyway, actually.
Yeah.
As a general philosophy of life, adapt yourself to the situation. The more adaptable you are, the better you'll survive in general.
And Asha says, I feel like most people who work with a Goetic are trying to be edgy.
I think
Well, yeah.
you're right, yeah.
Gothic,
It's
scary,
cool working with demons,
spooky, dangerous. Woo, I work with demons, I'm dangerous.
There's
Sorry.
a number of the vampire people that are like that too.
Yeah. Ickle says, my will doesn't always have all the information on a cosmic level, though. I don't want to be so guarded against a little destruction. I block the greater pattern from weaving out. Well, it's always a choice and a decision you have to make in the time. I missed Carla said, sometimes it's easier to imagine positive and negative as a battery. You need both polarities. That works here on the physical plane, but it's not.
It's mostly a pretty good analogy.
Yeah, in physical reality it works. It doesn't work quite the same way.
On the other planes, like attracts like rather than opposites attract.
Yeah.
And that's not really even true just for like batteries and for electronic circuits. So really, but yeah, but it is a good. The aspect that you need both is accurate though. Like the same way, light. You had no light. I mean, if all you had was light, there'd be no contrast, and you wouldn't be able to see anything.
And the same with the dark.
Yeah. So you need both, and it's like that kind of thing. So that aspect I consider very accurate about the positive and negative battery thing.
But it's not a battle between them who's going to ascend and who's going to win.
Right. It's not a battle. A battery
Yeah.
is more a union. It goes
Yeah.
from one electrode to the other electrode and makes happy. Batteries make love.
That's how you make electricity.
Yep.
And that's also how your nerves work. You know, the impulses that go through from, all through your nerves are the changing polarities as they go down through the nerve and then they come back up. And it's like, yep, electrical impulses. They're pretty cool. All right. So Trinity says, thanks for the tip on the video. We'll definitely look it up tonight. You're welcome. Pickle Pixie says, and sure, I don't think I can stop the universe, but I don't want to be obstreperous either. Oops. I think that means obstructive. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. Teresa says, I came across one of your videos where you said you took a class from a Catholic priest on exorcism. Can you elaborate? Oh, that was a weird class. That was from Father Nicola, who was one of the advisors, the technical advisors on the movie The Exorcist. And since he was in town, it was in DC, and he did a demonology class from, of course, the Catholic perspective. He talked about the real story behind the movie and how it was very different, and it was a boy, not a girl, etc., which was interesting. He played some genuine current tapes of an exorcism that was going on in Italy, and the sounds that came out of the voice of the person who was being exorcised was quite animalistic and seemed impossible for a human to make. So it was an interesting experience. And I don't know, I decided not to watch the movie at that time. I decided I was too vulnerable because I was still putting my head back together from hallucinating for a period of time, and still restructuring my psyche. So I don't know if it was wise for me to take the demonology class. And I actually met with Father Nicola individually at one point, and told him about the experience that I had with seeing what looked like demons, my thought forms and fears and anxieties and everything that were completely displayed in front of me, and then Moida, my spirit guide, standing behind them with looking like the Virgin Mary sort of thing. And I told him all of that had happened, and his only thing he could think of to say to me was that there was clear demonic and angelic influences in my life. So yeah, at the time, I was very confused about what was going on, and since then, I've become more clear on my own path and worked through some of the things that were happening with me then. But yeah, Catholic Church was not any help. And I wasn't Catholic, so that probably didn't help either. Asha says, does that mean that we are related to fae if we love animals and fairies? Does that mean witches are related to fairies? Okay, witches and fairies have a special relationship with each other. Historically speaking, we've always been on different terms with the fairy folk than regular people are with them, which could be why there's those disparate stories about the fae, because we accept them for what they are. We work with them. We have similar goals as far as working for the land and working for the good of the spirits and the people and all this other stuff. We're not prone to having any of the negative encounters that a lot of other people say that they've had with them. So it could mean that somewhere way in the past we have some kind of a more genetic component relationship, and we've just sort of split into two branches, but I have no idea if that would be the case or not from a scientific perspective, genetics and all. But they have seen that people who are like us that see things, we have different brain patterns than other people. I saw an article on that. They call it the butterfly effect. There's actually an MRI and brainwave pattern that they can see. And they did a whole experiment on it and had people said that they saw angels or spirits and beings and so forth, and then people who didn't. And then they compared them, and pretty much everybody who said they saw things had this same brainwave pattern. So there could be a genetic component to that. is kind of an interesting thing that their science is starting to discover some of the nuances that might be going on in our brains and how they work. When I saw the article, I'm like, boy, I'd like them to hook me up. That'd be fun to see what they came up with. But anyway, yeah. So Grateful Al says, hello. Hi, Grateful Al. Yaga says, so I guess when I hear Christians talk about being attacked by demons, they may be their karma from the past, or it could be their thought forms and their expectations.
You know, you have to think lots of these people worshiping, thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people worshiping and believing in Satan and the demons. They're going to create a certain amount of those thought forms that are going to be out there, and they're going to specifically target Christians, of course, because they're the ones that believe in them and form them. So,
yeah,
you know, yeah, they create a lot of their own demons, so to speak. I mean, really, literally, with their thoughts and emotions and things.
Yeah, it could be a combination of the two.
Yeah.
Jam says, me too. Learn to say no. Asher says, so many people who try to spiritually intimidate people with fear or just do mean things for no reason. I just shared the orb videos, and when they attack, why does a psychic attack land? Is it because of my karma if a person sends negative energy or entities and it lands, or just a weakness in my energy field? Oh, I see. Well, there might be something in you that is not completely sure about yourself on some level. Like I got to get up here again. Or I feel pretty strong that I have Kundalini energy flowing like water. I would think the Kundalini would be a good psychic protection, but if a person is sleeping, they're more vulnerable, so maybe you need to make more wards. Actually, that's not a bad idea, is to make wards for when you're sleeping. And because that is definitely when you are most vulnerable, or when you're sick. That's when I have the most distress when it comes to like keeping my boundaries up, is when I'm sick, weakened physically. So it's a real thing, which is why Ian made me that special charged up rock. So when I'm feeling like my boundaries aren't where they're supposed to be, I just get out the rock and say, okay, guys, bye. Go away, leave me alone. So there's nothing wrong with having that. And a lot of times in the beginning, you set up your psychic wards, your energy wards, casting your circle, like maybe even nightly for months, to just make sure that it's really inscribed on the other planes. And then every full moon, charge it up and make sure that it's energized and so forth. And sometimes you don't have to do it for months at a time after you've been doing it for long enough. But it's just sort of taking care of business to make sure that, you know, everything is there. And if you've got guardian spirits, one of the secondary protections we have is the knife in the floor at the head of our bed, with the copper wire wrapped around the hilt and wrapped around the bed, the frame of the bed, all the way around. And that helps to like ground out external thoughts and external thought forms and things, and helps you to be in your own sleep instead of like maybe randomly attacked so much. But anyway, so Arla says a complimentary charge. Jam says frequency, yes. Normal people have 500, but others have 700 to 1,000. Pickle said something and retracted it. Astor said maybe my nightmare was just the Kundalini working through my own karma. Ian says obstreperous, adjective, noisy and difficult to control. The boy is cocky and obstreperous. Obstreperous. That's a new word.
Right out of the dictionary.
And Ickle says noisily and stubbornly defiant. Yes, that works. Thank you. Carla says they never are, and I was raised Catholic. But at 11, when Dad had his first heart attack, I got a witchcraft book to find a way to heal his heart. So there you go. Well, good for you. Being practical. Jam says, Siofra, why do they show witches on broom when you do not fly on the broom, but you do magic pots? I guess, right? Well, the broom is a pretty standard way in the old days to hide a staff. And a broom is also a magical device that you can use to sweep out negative energy, not just in witchcraft, but in a lot of different pagan religions. Santeria does that before they have a ritual. They do the sweeping of the broom to get negative energy out. When you're cleaning the house, you do the same kind of thing. But, in the old days when the Inquisition was running around, the kitchen witch was basically the witch. That was the main way to hide yourself, was in common implements. So your staff ended up with a broom on the end of it in order to make it look like it belonged in a house and that you were using just to clean. Your cauldron became a soup pot that you hung on the fire. And so, you could make a magical brew in there, or you could make dinner. Your athame became the kitchen knife that you used. It's just like, and I have some of that in me. I must have been that kind of a witch somewhere down the line, because I don't have a problem just turning any item I find into a magical object on the spot if I need it. And I think that's probably where that comes from. But yeah, the whole flying on the broom, there's theories about the flying ointment being placed on the broom handle and then inserted vaginally with belladonna and a bunch of other things on it that made you feel like you were flying. I don't know if that's just somebody trying to make it fit or not.
I think they just take it. If you want to take it, just take it.
Yeah, I don't think you need.
Take it as a brew. I mean.
Yeah, I don't know that would be a requirement at all. I think somebody just had fun trying to come up with that.
One of those Freudians thought it up, probably.
Yeah, could be. I don't know. But anyway.
Sometimes a broom is just a broom.
Yep, sometimes a broom is just a broom. So Haley says, absolutely, this was my experience when I was a Christian. I only ever saw forms of the devil when I believed in it. Yeah. Carla says, I made a link to him for sure. I got permission to be out all night, but was home by midnight the night he passed. That was the years later, but yeah. Asher says, yeah, I never felt normal like other people. I wanted to be an animal when animals are so special. Well, I looked to animals to teach me how to behave, because it was very clear to me from a young age that the people I had around me did not know what they were doing, and they didn't know how to behave properly. So I looked to the animals to get an idea of what normal behavior should be. And they have much better boundaries. Cats are great at teaching boundaries. They're pretty awesome at that. It's just like, wow, okay, don't touch me. Or else, whoo-hoo, I gotcha. So Gaga says, I love it when the science and spiritual concepts come together. I feel like things become more clear. Yep. Astra says, yeah, I'm learning to stand up for myself and have boundaries, but I'm not a naturally confrontational person, so maybe I need to practice that confidence. We don't even have to be confrontational with it. Just be firm. It's like confrontation implies that there's some kind of a battle going on between you and the other person, that you have to stand up for yourself in order to keep your space. And if you just have your space and they can't get in it, you don't need to confront them. It depends on the situation, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I've certainly had some situations where I've just said how it was. My loose tongue just came out and there were all my thoughts on the table. But most of the time, it's like you can, if you're not engaged in it, if you have the solid boundaries, whatever they're doing out there is sort of interesting to watch, maybe, but not necessarily impactful. So if you can see it as some weird puppet show, something happening out there, that's nothing to do with you. It's like they're all playing out their roles and their parts, and there's subjective and realities and their thought forms and their unresolved issues and everything, and it's just like running around doing its thing. You can just sit and watch it and maybe learn something from it, but you don't have to engage.
Sometimes that takes some awfully strong boundaries, though.
Yeah, well, the stronger your boundaries get, the easier that is, because then you know what doesn't have anything to do with you. But yeah. But anyway. Jam says they open third eyes up more when you're sad or upset. Gaga says, how accurate is palm reading? Probably depends on the palm reader. I mean, you've got your basic lines, but if you're reading palms, you're touching another person, right? So if you're a naturally gifted clairvoyant, I mean, I did that. I don't know how to read palms in particular. I just looked at a book one day, and I was at a bar with a guy that I thought was kind of cute, And I said, "Oh, let me read your palm," so I could hold his hand, you know. So, and I was looking at his palm and going like, "Oh, your mother passed, and her name was Mary or something like that," and freaked him out because apparently I was right. I said something that were just completely right on. And he's like, "How can you see that in my hand?" I was like, "Well, it's right there." It's like, see, yeah, then I have an excuse. It's in the palm, sort of like in the cards. You can't blame me if I see something accurate in the cards. It's the cards that are doing the talking. So you know, I'm okay. It just really depends. So Jam says, "Laugh out loud," and Ashley says, "Laugh out loud. What in the world?" Ashley says, "My cat will slap the crap out of me if he gets testy." Jam says, "My cat say, 'Do not pet me just because I'm a cat.' She's let pet her when she wants." Yes. Ashley says, "Yep, not my monkey, not my circus." Jam, laugh, ha ha. Yeah. And humor is a good result. I mean, seriously, if you're too serious about things, you're going to get yourself in trouble. And really, it's like if you take yourself too seriously, if it becomes way too important, you probably need to check your ego at the door.
That sting.
Ooh.
Talisman. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. We have ordered a tool. Ian is going to be making, I'm going to be shining this in the camera. I can see the shine on it. This is a piece of stainless steel, and we've ordered a tool for cutting the steel. So he's going to engrave steel with the symbol and so forth. So we have the tool coming that can do that, so you can make perfect circles and whatnot. So that should be interesting and fun.
Talisman.
Yep, for talismans.
Hopefully the tool works for it. I'm a little bit worried because the stainless is really hard, even a thin piece like this.
Yep. Teresa says, "You seductress, you, Siofra." Mikkel says, "If a dog bites you, it's the owner's legal responsibility. If a cat bites you, it's not because cats are wild animals that have just chosen to live with us." But it is. We have a ginger cat, and I came across some videos on YouTube of another ginger. And I just thought, I wonder if there's any similarities between their cat and mine. And oh my God, the talk that they have was identical. And you should have seen my cat. He just sat right up like this, and he started looking at the TV, listening to the chatter that this other cat was and it was like, it was pretty clear he knew what he was talking about. It was like this serious interest going on there. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah, since our cat almost never is interested in anything happening on the TV.
Yes, cat sounds though he will like go up and look, and he's a quite a chatterbox and pretty funny. Jam says, "I'm the first one to laugh about myself, and it's a lot." Good, sense of humor is important. Asha says, "If my cat bites someone, that's between them and God." Sam says, "Other cat, lazy, nothing bothers him." Yeah, you know, every cat is different. I was thinking about how incredible their personalities are and how unique they are for how small their brains are. And the difference between like our cat and our bunny, one being a predator and one being prey.
Yeah, they really have totally different rules they live by.
Yeah. And the bunny wanted to interact with the cat the other day. The cat was like scratching on his little scratching thing on the floor, you know, getting his claws all fixed up and whatnot. And the bunny, when he wants to interact, he sort of jumps in there and he just sort of stares. He just like stands there and he goes like this. And so he went next to the cat, like at a 90-degree angle to him. He's like watching the cat because he wants to interact. And the cat's going like this and he's looking over. It's like, "The hell are you doing?" And he tries to ignore him. He does this. He looks and he's still looking at him. So he goes like this and baps him in the head to get him to stop looking. Because, you know, cats consider that rude.
Yeah.
So it's very funny. They have such different languages. Their body languages are
and
completely
the bunny's
unique.
just the opposite. If I want him to come up on my lap, I look right into my face and I say some sweet stuff to him and tell him, and then usually I look away for a while and he'll decide after a few minutes he's going to jump up after that.
Yep.
Sometimes.
He's been very expressive lately, so he's having fun. Jam says, "My dog gets jealous a lot about the cats." Yeah. And the cat gets jealous about the bunny.
Yep.
He really wanted his carrots this morning. He was like, he was sure that I had something really good in my hand. And I put him on the table, and he went up there and he's going to bat them down. So I put him on the floor. I said, smell them. These are carrots. You don't want carrots. And he's like looking at them like, what is this stuff?
And he's,
Like,
the funny thing is, he'll spend the longest time examining the rabbit's food, trying to figure out what the heck the rabbit is interested in
and
that
why?
stuff.
It's like he doesn't comprehend. It's like there's nothing here. So yeah. Carla says, mine's part Bengal and only comes around us. If visitors stop by, she'll hide. I don't know why, but she likes to be petted when she eats. Interesting. Asher says, my relationship with my cat is hilarious because I'll be like, I love you so much. Then he'll randomly attack me in seconds. And I'm like, you little SOB. Then I'll start laughing. He keeps me on my toes. Yeah, cats get overstimulated rather quickly, and that could be it.
Especially some breeds.
Some breeds are more sensitive than others because they have all of those hairs on them are sensory organs. They feed them all kinds of information. And some cats, they can take a certain amount of petting, and then all of a sudden they're overstimulated, and you're not picking up on the signal to stop, so then they attack. It gets you to stop touching them. Em says, my dog, I give treats. She put nose up. If it doesn't like the treat, spoiled. Well, yeah, they're very clear. They know what they like. They know what they don't like. So, and that's the thing. Is like that's one of the things I like about animals, is they're pure in their intention, and
Yep.
they're not trying. Not all animals. Some animals are trying to please you like crazy, but in general, animals are just what they are, and we adapt to them, and they adapt to us, and we sort of come up with a mutually agreeable kind of language between us. But yeah, it is good, I think, to have other life forms around you. I think it really helps people to develop empathy and not as much self-absorption.
I think it would have helped me a lot as a kid if I was allowed to have a pet.
Yeah. Carla says, churros and temptations are a big hit here. Our cat really likes temptations. Sam says, they are our family. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like getting out of that egocentric self-absorption is important to our development, because as long as we're just in that space, we're missing out on everything else that's out there. So that's the spirits. If you want to connect with spirits, if you can't connect to the animal that's physically in your house, how can you connect to a spirit that doesn't even have a body? Because their input is a lot more subtle.
Well, not only that, it's harder to fool an animal. You can fool people because they think about words and things, but the animal just thinks about what he's feeling from you. He doesn't understand your words and things, so
Yeah.
it's harder to fool an animal for sure.
Well, it's like with babies too. If the main person, like the mother in the household or whatever, is upset and anxious and having a hard time, the baby's not going to sleep. The animals are going to be acting out. They're all going to be like on edge because they take their cue from the environment and the energy in the household. So yeah, they're pretty good at being sort of a yardstick to know if something's up. And also they see the spirits and stuff like that too. So that can give you another hint. Astor says he doesn't understand I'm not a cat, but cats are ornery. They walk over and beat each other up for the fun of it. Well, in my household, I am the alpha cat. When I have cats, I'm the cat in charge, and I have cat language skills, and I use those language skills in order to let the cat know what the boundaries are. And when I do that, they will obey. It's kind of interesting.
Yep, knowing how to speak cat language helps a lot.
It does help a lot.
Now we're still learning the bunny language.
Yeah, that I'm slowly starting to get into.
Yep.
The bunny's been jumping up on my lap more too, so that's nice. Jam says, hate people that get dogs and leave outside all day. My neighbors do it. Poor dogs barking all day. My angels said that they are not happy. Well, no, of course they're not happy. Dogs really want to be with their people. They're very attached to their person. Cats can be by themselves and be perfectly happy, but they also know when you're supposed to be home. And they're very emotional. I mean, a lot of people think that cats are aloof, but
They actually are.
they are some of
They
the
get
most
pretty
emotionally
upset, yeah.
available animals I've ever encountered, as far as like, when they really care about you, and they know when you go to work, how long it's going to take for you to get home, and then they wait to see if you show up, and then if you don't show up when you're supposed to, they're pretty sure you're dead, because that's the only thing that would keep them from getting home, would be that they were dead, and then they go into a panic. It's like when we were in Hawaii, we called our cats from Hawaii to talk on the phone so that they could hear our voices and know that we weren't dead. Because I'd learned about that, and I'm like, oh, my poor cat. And we had a very emotional cat. Charlie was probably one of the most emotional cats I think we've ever had. Yeah, and he got very depressed when Sable died. So, and they have lots of feelings. My daughter got in trouble when she was in school in the 8th grade, I think, and a teacher said that animals didn't have feelings, and she said, "Well, you're an idiot. Anyone who owns a cat knows that they have feelings." I think that was a trip to the principal's office and a phone call to me. Yep. So, Jen says, laugh out loud. I'm a vegan and my cat always has a look of disgust on her face when she smells my food. I can read her thoughts saying, the crap you eat. Asher says, okay, Siofra, you can give my cat a talking to. No, don't tempt me, I might. Jen says, she once slapped a banana out of my hand onto the floor. Ah! Out of my hand. Didn't like that banana, huh? Jam says, my last cat that passed away, I had colon cancer and she would sleep right on me. Found they smell cancer. Did you know that? Uh-huh. Yeah. They're very sensitive to those kinds of smells. And dogs, too. They train dogs to smell certain types of cancer. They can train them for specific things like melanomas and whatnot.
My cat got very emotional and slept with me a lot while I was, or beside me when I got really sick. I had pneumonia for some months and I like came close to dying. And
yeah,
Jasmine was just a lovely cat. She'd come over and keep me company and almost seemed like she was suffering ill because I was.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that can happen too. An animal can take on some of the energy of what their person's going through to try and help them. Astra says, yep, exactly. It's a learning experience to care for something with another will and instinct that's so different. Carla says, Jen, haha. Pickle says, good for her. I'd have taken her for ice cream. Astra says, laugh out loud, Jen, that's a cat for you. Yeah, and, they're part of our tradition, right? I mean, cats have a history with witches for sure. One of the reasons why around Halloween people have to keep their black cats in the house, because some people are stupid and think that black cats are evil, but they're just a cat. It's not evil. Speaking of good and evil
Yep.
kind of stuff. Yeah, Ashley says, good kitty. Carlos says, I'm sorry to hear that, Ian. Good knowing you healed well. Yeah. I have a feeling the Pope is about ready to pass.